I wasn't expecting this to be the first video for my new channel talking about politics, my ramblings, all that sort of stuff, but we had the election yesterday. We had the result during this morning, and obviously we have a Labour government, a very large majority for that Labour government with Sir Keir Starmer, the toolmaker's son. He certainly made a tool, and it's going to be an interesting 5 years. Very interesting. I mean, the Tories took an absolute beating. They lost some pretty big hitters, and we got Reform coming through with 4 MPs. It was actually impressive, even though it was a lot less than the exit polls sort of suggest. I think they suggested 13 seats, but nonetheless, 4 seats is actually really, really good. 4 million votes, which is about the same as what UKIP got back in the day. It's a really good chunk of votes when you consider as well that the party has, they've got no ground game. It was very much a startup in the last sort of 6 weeks. And Nigel only threw his hat in the ring, I think, with about 4 or so weeks to go. So it's a big achievement. You got Nigel Farage in there, you got Lee Anderson. Lee Anderson had kept his seat. Richard Tyres got his in Skegness. And then Rupert Lowe, Great Yarmouth. 4 really, really good candidates. And I kind of feel like there's a number of Conservatives, especially the ones that lost their seats, that were more onto the right side of the party, that will be kicking themselves, because if they'd have defected to Reform when they had the chance, and I think Nigel's even said as much this morning, they probably would have been re-elected. They would have had a better chance, at least. So it'd be interesting to see if those people sort of come back into the fold over the next couple of years, running as candidates for Reform. You never know. But, yeah, we have a Labour government. Labour government. It's been a while. Now, a lot of people, especially you young'uns, you won't remember the Labour government, and everybody thinks it was really, really good because things were a little bit more sort of stable in a way economically. We'd have pandemics to deal with and all that jive. And actually, immigration levels weren't too bad, other than the illegal migration that happened because Blair opened the doors and more countries joining the EU, that sort of thing. So it was more the constitutional changes that Blair made, and that's sort of why we are where we are. The Tories with Cameron sort of modelled themselves on Blair in a way. And so that's why the Tories have ended up with this sort of split, where you've got more people sort of leaning more towards that Blairite Labour style of government. And then you've got your more traditional Tories on the right-hand side. Now, I mean, that's centre-right, it's people throwing far-right about and stuff. It's crazy. So the Tories are in a bit of a mess. They're still going to be in a mess. Then I can't remember if they got 120 seats or something like that. Kemi Badenoch, can't remember how you pronounce it exactly, but she was actually who I wanted to win the leadership contest back when Liz Truss won it. So I kind of feel like in the position that they're in now, I don't want that to happen, because I actually want the Tories to just fold completely. I want Reform to take over. Reform are the only way through this, because they're the only ones with the ideas and the willingness to actually make changes, big changes, constitutionally, economically, and socially. There's so much that they want to do, and I kind of feel like it's the only route. It's the only route now. So we just got to hope that, well, I say hope, we know that Nigel is going to be the biggest voice in Parliament, is going to be giving them grief all the time, and it's going to get interesting. Even though we've got this Labour government, they're going to try and solidify all the things that Blair did We're going to get more on gender ideology. We're going to continue with high levels of immigration. And they might still give the vote to 16 and 17-year-olds, which we know at the moment, there's a lot of youngsters that are actually starting to go towards reform as it is. They just couldn't vote in this election. And not just 16, 17-year-olds, younger than that, who will be able to vote by the time the next election comes round. So Labour want to be careful because they might not get what they wish for. But what I liked about Nigel being asked the question of, would you be happy with 16 and 17-year-old votes, considering that a lot of them will be supporting you? And he said no. There's such a thing as principles. That is what I want in politics. I want to see more principles. We don't see that at all. We just don't. I mean, does anybody look at Starmer and think he has any principles? He's flip-flopped on pretty much everything. And I thought it was quite interesting that because he was being pushed on, the women question, and he eventually sort of cracked and said that we will protect women's spaces for biological females, whilst people sort of ignore the fact that he could just recategorize a biological female as anybody that identifies as female. They could quite easily do that. I did find it quite kind of strange that there's a lot of people that are very critical of Labour and the things that they've been supporting, as well as the Conservatives with gender ideology and the like. And yet some people still voted for Labour. Like, it seemed like J.K. Rowling, for instance, was very much determined to get Labour to say that they would back women's spaces, biological women's spaces. And yet, it's very clear that the majority of the party does not want to do that. So it's like they've got this thing in their head where it's like, well, I'm left-wing, so I can't vote for that other party. Not realising that actually there's a number of people in Reform, even if Nigel's the leader, Nigel's actually not as far to the right as people make out. Not even close. It's very much centre-right. But there's people in Reform that are not even on the right. They're more centrist. Even some of them would you class more sort of classical left-wing. People don't realise we've moved away from the left versus right. It's very much whether you're pro-Western civilization or you're not. Those that aren't are working to denigrate it and to destroy everything that was great about it, what we had before Blair. I would say during the 90s, it was absolutely perfect. All right, maybe not perfect, but for the most part, really, really good. And then you've got the people that are pro Western civilization. That could be people on the left and the right in terms of what you would regard as classical left and right. So that's why when it comes to Brexit, people that wanted to leave the EU because they didn't want to be a part of that, they wanted to be a sovereign nation, those voters came from left and right. And there's a lot of people still not realising this realignment is happening. And before we can go back to, because I can see that people want to carry on with the whole left versus right thing, before we can get back to left versus right as it used to be, we have to settle what our civilization is going to be. We need to get back to those values. Reform is the only party, literally the only party trying to pull us back there. It's like David Starkey says we need a restoration to before Blair. And I kind of agree with that. If we could get back to that, we can maybe salvage things. But that's basically it. It's a civilizational battle right now. There's no left versus right. In terms of our country, it's pro-UK or globalist. You got the globalists versus the nationalists, in a way. And it's going to be a tough battle because, you know, we've got that Labour government in now, and things are going to get a bit sketchy. Anyway, I'm going to stop rambling because I'm probably making absolutely zero sense and talking total crap. But let me know what you think of the election results. Were you hoping for more for reform? I mean, you might be here supporting Labour. Who knows? I don't know. Are you happy with the result? What do you think Keir Starmer government is going to be like? Thank you very much for watching. I will catch you all very soon.